Hello, my dear friends. Today is Zion of, the 7th day of Av, and it's the 10th Yahrzeit of my father, Rav Chaim Mendel, Rav Yosef Dov, Zecher Tzadik Uvracha. I've spoken about my father many times, but today I want to try to, on the day of his Yahrzeit, try to give a little bit of a synopsis of who my father was. He was a great person, and I want to explain why. My father served in 3 rabbinic capacities. He was the Menahel, the principal of the Yeshiva Spring Valley in 1948. The yeshiva was still in its infancy, and then he moved to Holyoke, Massachusetts, where he served as the rabbi in a shul called Rotfei Shalom for 8 years, and then he became the rabbi in Israel Forest Hills, where he served with great distinction for over 25 years. After that, my father retired together with my mother, Alea Hashalom. They moved to Eretz Yisrael. They lived in Arzeh. This was their lifelong dream of making Aliyah. They lived in a community in Arzeh Habira in Yerushalayim. And my father, throughout his lifetime, had an enormous impact on the community. Certainly as a menahel and as a rav in 2 shuls, my father influenced, he shaped the community religiously, and he impacted on people on a communal base level and an individual basis as well. But even when he retired, he continued to be a person who had tremendous hashpah, tremendous influence. When I sat shiva for my father, the people in the neighborhood came to me, Menachem Abel, and Arzeh Habira is a super distinguished community of Rabbanim and Talmidei Chachamim and Rosh Yeshivas and Mashgichim. And I heard from over and over again, people said to me, your father was a dugma for the community. He was a symbol. He was a representation of what it meant to have midos tos. My father's midos were exemplary, and he inspired people both by his character and by his religious passion. He had an influence on other people as well. I think that my father's passing on Zion of, the 7th day of Av, is very significant, because the Gemara says in Tainus that we know the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th day of Av. 9th day of Av is when first the Babylonians, the first Beis Hamikdash, and then the Romans for the second Beis Hamikdash, they lit the Beis Hamikdash on fire on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th day of Av. But they entered the Beis Hamikdash. They penetrated the walls of the Beis Hamikdash, which was built like a fortress. They were able to penetrate on the 7th day of Av, and they came into the Beis Hamikdash, and the Gemara says that in Tainus, the Gemara says that they ate in the Beis Hamikdash, and they partied, and they committed vile averos in the Beis Hamikdash, obscene or immoral actions in the Beis Hamikdash, and then they set it afire on the 9th day of Av. Now the Beis Hamikdash, we know, was destroyed by the first by the Babylonians, second by the Romans, but the Beis Hamikdash was more than simply a physical structure. Physically, it was a magnificent edifice. But the Beis Hamikdash, the essence of the Beis Hamikdash was that it was a spiritual enclave, a spiritual haven for the Jewish people. And in addition to the physical Beis Hamikdash, there was a spiritual Mikdash, and that represented the bond that existed between HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whose Shechina dwelled in the Mikdash, and Klal Yisrael. The physical Mikdash was destroyed by heathens, but the spiritual Beis Hamikdash was compromised by Klal Yisrael. The first Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara says, was destroyed because they engaged in the 3 cardinal sins: Gilui Arayos, Shfichus Dam, Avodah Zarah, idolatry, murder, and immorality. The second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of blind hatred. And the Gemara says that you see from here that blind hate, sinas chinam, is just as bad as the 3 cardinal sins. So that's like mind-boggling. How could you compare people who don't get along and they're angry at each other and they're fighting and there's machlokas and they hate each other? That's equal to somebody who's worshiping idolatry or committing immoral sins or murder. How could that be? So the answer is because Torah is both a system of halacha. There's laws, there's 613 mitzvahs, but Torah is also a value system. And there's such a thing as a Jewish personality. A Ben Torah means there's a certain because of the midos and the character and the values that the person has, the person becomes a Ben Torah. And being a Ben Torah, I'm sorry, the other way around. Following the halachos without being a Ben Torah is worthless. If it's just strict laws that you follow, the dry laws in the Shulchan Aruch, that doesn't make you a Ben Torah. Ben Torah has to do with absorbing the values of Torah, the values of chesed and kindness. So a person who is always negative and fighting and seeing the worst in people and criticizing, that's the antithesis of a Torah personality. And that's why the second Beis Hamikdash, it was just as terrible a sin as the sins of the first Beis Hamikdash. And the second Beis Hamikdash, the spiritual Beis Hamikdash was compromised by the sinas chinam, and because the spiritual Beis Hamikdash couldn't stand, so therefore the physical Beis Hamikdash was destroyed as well. And the beginning of that process of destroying, the final process of destroying the Beis Hamikdash took place on Zion of. That's when the Beis Hamikdash, which was an oasis of values and morality and kedusha and sanctity and closeness to Kadosh Baruch Hu, the heathens who were totally immoral, they were brutal. They when they came into the Beis Hamikdash, they slaughtered men, women, and children, hundreds of thousands. The blood was like a river of blood that flowed through the Beis Hamikdash. That immorality was entered into the Beis Hamikdash. They celebrated and they partied in the Beis Hamikdash, and that destroyed completely the spiritual base foundation of the Beis Hamikdash, and that led to the Beis Hamikdash being completely destroyed by the flames that engulfed the Beis Hamikdash. My father spent his whole life fighting against those types of forces that destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. The Churban that started on Zion of, my father valiantly, as a warrior, he fought against those types of forces, and therefore the fact that he passed away on Zion of, to me, is so significant, because that was the day, that was the beginning of the Churban, and my father fought to reverse the Churban that took place. My father, first of all, when it came to machlokas, my father was incomparable. He abhorred machlokas. He couldn't handle machlokas. He valiantly fought against, if there was a machlokas, not only if somebody tried to have a fight with my father wouldn't allow it, but if my father became aware of a machlokas in the area, in the neighborhood, he extinguished the flames. And even though it wasn't, he could have said, it's not my business, and it's not my shul, and not my father. It destroyed him to hear that people were fighting with each other. He was like Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen was Oyev Shalom, V'rodeh Shalom. He pursued peace. The Gemara says, the famous Gemara says, when he heard two people were fighting, he go to each one and he tell each one, the other person, he feels terrible, he's crying that you had a fight, and he's so sorry, and he apologized, and he's telling the same thing to the other person, and then the two would meet together, and they would hug and kiss each other. My father took it upon his shoulders to be like Aaron HaKohen, and to be Rodei Shalom, that means to pursue Shalom. So significant it is that my father's first shul was called Rotvei Shalom, which means the pursuit of Shalom. That's what my father did. He was Rodei Shalom. My father treated everybody with tremendous dignity, which is the antithesis of machlokas. In machlokas, you denigrate the person, and you cancel the person, and you invalidate the person, and you demonize them. My father was the exact opposite, the antithesis of that. He treated everybody with kavod malachim. He treated them with like royalty. My father was mekabel kol adam b'sever panim yafos, like it says in Pirkei Avos. Shammai says you have to greet everyone with a beautiful countenance. My father made people feel so special. I think I described this once. I went with my father to Miami Beach. My brother made a simcha, and my father, at that time, he was in his late 80s, and he had advanced Parkinson's, and he could hardly walk. He saw a person in the Beis Medrash. He walked over to him. His name was Mr. Siegel. I remember because he was my friend's father, Chaim Siegel's father. He walked over to Mr. Siegel, and he gave him Shalom Aleichem. Then I saw he was talking to the man for about 5 minutes. It took my father about 10 minutes to walk to Mr. Siegel because he had Parkinson's. Afterwards, Mr. Siegel came to me and he says, your father is incredible. I can't believe it. Do you know what your father said to me? I said, no. He says, your father said to me, he says, I remember you. I met you 5 years ago. Your name is Mr. Siegel, and it's so nice to see you. And he said, Mr. Siegel told me that your father made me feel like I was the most important person in the world, and that even though 5 years had elapsed, I'm still his best friend. And he made me feel like $1 million. And my father didn't only do that to Mr. Siegel. He did that to everybody. He was Mekabel, Kol Adam, every person he greeted, B'Sever upon him Yafas. I remember he was walking into shul Friday evening. We used to walk together for Mincha and Kabbalah Shas. He gave a Shalom Aleichem to every single person. It was beaming. He was so happy to see everybody. Everybody knew how much he was machshiv them, how much he valued each person. My father saw greatness in each person. Instead of seeing flaws, he was able to see the potential and how special every person was. There was nobody that gave compliments like my father. He didn't cease giving compliments. To me, he complimented me to the end of the earth. Always complimented, but it wasn't just because I was a son. He constantly complimented people. And they were genuine. It wasn't flattery or exaggeration. Because he had the capacity, the ability to see what was special in every person. My father was, when it came to being dang, the Gemara talks about being dang kaf slus and dang kaf chovi. You're not allowed to give you have to give the person benefit of doubt. That's dang kaf slus, and the opposite is dang kaf chovi, where you fail to you jump to conclusions about the person. My father is never dang kaf chovi. He always was down if he would hear something negative about a person, he would flip it around and he would say there has to be a reason, explanation, and maybe first he didn't believe Lashon Hara. He couldn't hear it. It's like his ears wouldn't penetrate. But then he would find all sorts of explanations of how it was that the person didn't do anything wrong. And my father, his whole life was devoted to treating people with dignity and to making people feel important. And that's what the people that told me in Arzei Abir, the Talmidei Chachamim, the Rosh Yeshivas, that they told me my father was a dugma, because that was his character, those was his midos. He was a Torah personality through and through. And that on Zion Av, which was the beginning of the Churban, my father, his whole presence was the antithesis of those forces that led to the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash. This idea of dignity, of human dignity being so important, is reflected in the beginning of the parsha. The Chumash says, "Eila dvar meshadira Moshe al kol Yisrael." This is what Moshe. This is the last few weeks of Moshe's life, and he gives Musar to Klal Yisrael. He criticizes them throughout Sefer Devarim for all the things that the Averis that they committed in the last 40 years, and he tells them what they have to do. He gives them Musar. But the first few psukim, the first one or two psukim, it lists a whole series of places, and Chazal said those were not places where they couldn't have been in all those places at the same time. Be'ever Hayarden, Ba'midbar, Ba'arava. The Rashi says they were ramazim, they were hints to places where the Jewish people had sinned. For example, Dizahav, the gold, the golden calf is alluded to by the phrase Dizahav. It was the gold. It was because the gold drew them. They had too much gold. They made the golden calf. Each one is an allusion to a different Averis. So Rashi says, why is it a remez? Why does it just allude to the Averis? So Rashi says, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to humiliate the Jewish people, and therefore he only alluded to the places. And even though, bear in mind that this was at the end of the 40 years, the people who had committed the sin of the Meraglim, they had all died already. It was the end of 40 years. So this is just the children. So what does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu, because of the covenant of Klal Yisrael, they were not the ones that committed the sin? But the answer is because it would have been humiliating for them to hear that your parents did this and did that. So Moshe Rabbeinu, his last few weeks, he wants to give Musa to the people, but he does it b'remiza. He just mentions the places. So there's a tremendous kasha, unbelievable kasha, and that is, it's true The first two psukim have the list of the different places where they committed these sins. So it's a remez, it's a hint. But then afterwards, you read the psukim further. In detail, Moshe talks about the Chait of the Egel, the Egazav, and the Meragim, and Korach, and all the different sins that they committed. So what does it help that at the beginning Moshe says it b'Ramiza? I think the answer is because Moshe was teaching a tremendous lesson to the Jewish people. He was showing them that you have to treat people with kavod. And even though they committed all these sins, he considers them still to be super chashuv, super important. And he was informing them that by being maramis, by alluding to the places. Once he once he taught them that lesson, that you don't hit people over the head, you tell them b'Ramiza. Then he had demonstrated that in spite of everything that they did, he still held them in the highest esteem. If you hold somebody to be super special, then you could explain to the person what they have to do in the future. Moshe had to encourage the people, and he had to tell them what pitfalls there are. But it was okay because he had already established his respect for the people. And so you see how important it is to show people that you respect them, even when they fail, even when there's shortcomings. You have to treat people with great dignity. And I was thinking perhaps that's why the pasuk says, Moshe al Kol Yisrael. This was the only time in the Chumash where Moshe spoke to the whole Jewish nation. Why? Perhaps because this is such an important lesson. He wanted to impart it to all of Klal Yisrael. They should understand that being a religious Jew, it's not enough to fulfill the dictums of Shulchan Aruch. Of course you have to do that. But you have to be a Torah personality. You have to treat people with respect and dignity and build them up and see the greatness in them. And that's what it means to be a Torah Jew. My father's memory should continue to inspire myself and all the people. There are many people in the shul that remember my father. We have not succeeded in rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash, but though the physical Beis HaMikdash does not yet stand, but let's at least we should endeavor as much as we can to rebuild the spiritual Beis HaMikdash, because when the spiritual Mikdash is strong, then it will lead to the coming of Mashiach and the building of the physical Beis HaMikdash. And we should be inspired by my father's example to treat people with tremendous kavod and derech eretz and compassion, and to avoid machlokas like the plague, like a fire, like a configuration. And in that way, Mitzvah Shem, we will be zeicher to see the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. B'mheira v'yameinu. Amen.